Hello and welcome to An Incomplete History.
I'm Hillary.
And I'm Jeff.
We're your hosts for this weekly history podcast.
So welcome back to our how-to series. This is a guide to kind of tools that we think are useful during this time of transition and kind of continued presence in online education. Kind of many of us find ourselves not being able to return to the classroom this fall. And, you know, it's, as I've said in previous videos, it's an opportunity for us to reevaluate the tools we use and why we use them and are there ethical ways to kind of engage in the tools we use in the production of materials for higher education, as well as K through 12, and the modeling we do for our students, right? I mean, if we're using ethical software and ethical products, that's a good role model for our students. So just again, kind of, I like to start each of these little how-to videos just reminding kind of what our criteria are. And I might break it occasionally. There's one title I'm going to talk about today that breaks it a little bit. But the criteria is, first, we want stuff to be free and open source. Second, we want it to focus on security and our ability to control our own things that we produce using the software. And then finally, we want it to be cross-platform compatible. We want it to be able to work with as many of our devices as possible, cross-platforms. So with that being said, today I want to talk about some tools that are useful for playback of materials, digital materials, including playback of things like movies and videos and audio files, as well as more artistic things, including doing screen caps. So we talked about capturing video last time, and Captura, which is my favorite screen casting software or screen recording software, it has a screen capture function, but the screen capture function I'm going to show you I think is far superior to the one that's built in to Windows. And remember, this is the one exception. This is going to be a title that's only available on Windows machine. I think it's far superior to the native one in Windows, and it's better than the one that Captura includes. We're also going to talk about kind of basic image manipulation and management software, and kind of if you have a vast library of photos or images that you try to manage, what can you do product-wise to kind of help you with that. And I'm pulling up Darktable here. I just realized I forgot to load that up. But I will show you Darktable as well. And we might as well start with Darktable because Darktable is the free and open source alternative to Adobe Bridge. And Adobe Bridge is an amazing program because it manages images across multiple libraries, and you can kind of set it to refresh from the libraries and things. It also is called Darktable because you can use it both as a light table, which is where you review photos or negatives traditionally in the old analog world of photography, and the darkroom where you develop photos. So the idea is you can either work with existing photos or you can take raw images. And if you have a digital SLR or other high-end device, you can usually save as RAW, and RAW is an unprocessed image file. And then you can really do a lot of interesting things with that. Darktable, honestly, unless you're kind of really managing a lot of images, or you are kind of maybe an amateur photographer or something, or maybe you teach in a field that relies on visual arts like this, you know, it's probably overkill for what most of us need in higher education, but it's pretty amazing. It's got some pretty amazing things going on with it. You can see here, I've got a library loaded in, and it shows me where the images are from, and I can kind of go through that way. I can also kind of sort through there, and you can kind of see my fascination with these geese that are on the island of Kauai. They crack me up. But Darktable, great option for you, darktable.org. It's a great free and open source alternative to Adobe Bridge, which is an incredibly expensive piece of software. So I had mentioned there was one title I was going to talk about that is not cross-platform compatible. It's strictly designed for Windows, and that's ShareX. It is an amazing screen capture tool, though. I mean, you can actually record short videos and GIFs out of it as well as just capturing your screen. And it's got kind of automation. You can set up kind of an automation flow. So, you know, so many different uses for it. GetShareX.com is where you go to get it. But you can kind of see the rich variety of things you can do for it. You can save things has pings where you can knock the backgrounds out. There's just a lot you can do with it. And if you find yourself using screen capture software a lot, this might be a good option for you. You can also annotate your screen captures while you're doing them. So it's great. It's great for little short explainer videos. Maybe you don't want to kind of have larger ones. After ShareX, I want to talk about kind of a ubiquitous thing that fills multiple roles, which is the VLC media player. This is my favorite media player there is. I use it on every platform that I use. And you can see Windows, Mac OS, Linux, Android, iOS, cross-platform compatibility. I will tell you this, if you're on a Windows machine, please download directly from videoland.org.vlc. In the Microsoft App Store, there is a version available on there, but for whatever reason, it's slightly different, and I don't like it. There's something about it I just don't like. But VLC is fantastic. It plays video, it plays audio, it plays lots of things. So check it out. And you don't necessarily need the next app I'm going to talk about, which is Clementine Music Player. So Clementine Music Player is the free and open source alternative to things like iTunes or music in Windows. And Clementine's great, and I've got this loaded up. I've just got, some of my music loaded up. I've got some Daft Punk stuff loaded up here. But it'll go on the internet, and it'll actually, let me see if I can get it to do this without triggering something on YouTube's kind of copyright warning. So I've got it silenced, so it shouldn't trigger that. But, it pulls up track info from the internet, and you can kind of organize away. You can also go on the internet and search titles and things. It integrates pretty seamlessly with your music library. If you've, have digital versions of the music files that you have, this is a great way to manage it. Like I said, though, if you've got VLC, you technically don't need something like Clementine. I just like it. It's really small. Sometimes I like to just have it going if I'm going to be working, writing stuff, or reading. It's a nice alternative to the built-ins. So we've got kind of a way to look at photos, a way to look at videos, a way to look at music. And last time we talked about Audacity, which is a great way to edit audio. But what about editing your photos, editing your screenshots and your photos? What do you do with that? Well, there are a couple of options, and one of them is GIMP. And GIMP is fantastic, and I've used GIMP for years. Not GOMP, GIMP. And it stands for New Image Manipulation Program. GIMP is great. It's overkill for most of us. It just is. I think it's kind of like Darktable. And then unless you're really, really involved in photography, it's just overkill. That being said, the documentation's fantastic. The tutorials are great. It's great. It is a great program. And if you have students you can see who are kind of interested in this type of thing, I would push them towards it and away from something like Photoshop. Photoshop's an expensive piece of software. And I think it's better if we show our students there are free and open source alternatives out there. Now, for most of us, to kind of satisfy our daily use of image editing, I would suggest you use Krita. So Krita.org. Krita is a much kind of more reasonable, but a little more artistic. It's less geared to kind of traditional Adobe Photoshop tasks and more kind of new Photoshop tasks. You can see these brushes you can use and things, and I can go in here and kind of do these kind of different kinds of brushes and do really basic stuff. But I mean, this is the one I use on a day-to-day basis when I have to kind of create a new banner for a new episode of the podcast or something like this one. We were talking about the Bill of Rights. We started a series on the Bill of Rights. It's easy for me to just go out in here and create this in Krita. Now, GIMP, I could do it, but for me, it's just a little clunkier. It's just overkill. So think of GIMP and Krita as alternatives to Adobe Photoshop. Another program you may or may not use, depending on your field, depending on how you teach, is Adobe Illustrator. And the kind of free and open source leader for this is Inkscape. And Inkscape has really progressed a lot. Inkscape used to be fairly buggy. It really isn't any anymore, is not buggy as much anymore. I will tell you this, the first time you load Inkscape after you install it, you've got to get it a little bit to load fonts and everything. And that first launch might get you a little worried something's broken, but just stay with it, it'll work. They've got some great tutorials. It's pretty easy to use. It's illustration software. And, you know, you can get as fancy or as simple as you want. It's easy for you to create kind of really dynamic images you could use for flyers or something, or student presentations. Again, I think it's just like Krita and just like GIMP. If you've got students who really are interested in things like Photoshop and Illustrator, push them towards this, encourage them to kind of embrace this, because I can save my Inkscape file into an SVG, that's the preferred format, but I can also save it in files that are a little more compatible with Adobe Illustrator. Now, Illustrator will be able to read an SVG file just fine. So those are kind of big, important sound and image viewing and editing tools to go along with Audacity from the previous video. And again, it's, you know, there are many options out there. There are more alternatives to the ones I'm covering. I'm covering the ones that I like, the ones I think work well for me. Those are the ones I'm covering in these videos. If you have suggestions, if you have like, well, what about this product or what about this one, put it in the comments below, and I'll take a look at it, and maybe I'll do an update and say, you know, a viewer kind of recommended I check out this instead, and I did, and wow, it kind of really blew my mind. It actually does more what I wanted to do than this other thing I was using. But again, it's about choices, right? And it's about you regaining control over the tools you use to create things for your classes. Now, the next video, the plan for the next video is I want to show you a typical workflow that I would do creating a lecture, kind of from research and kind of initial writing stage through kind of the creation of kind of audio visual elements to go with it. That might be something like a slideshow, to the recording of it and beyond, and kind of modeling this workflow using all these tools that I've chosen, that I've kind of focused on in this series.